finance from Absa. Overcoming all to get you financed.
The Eastern Cape 400 was run over 2 loops of a 160-kilometer route that took in new territory in the Gamtoos Valley. Also on the agenda was a trip into the Longmoor Forest, which for years has formed part of the route on the Volkswagen National Championship Rally. At a D-control at the end of racing section 1, Colin Matthews and Alan Smith led Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman, with Hicho and Jaap de Bruin leading the production vehicle category.
Well, we're very fortunate. Duncan had a problem. I don't know if it's a puncture or... but luckily we passed him, and I think we're the first SP on the road. No, I think so. We definitely... But tight. We have to be very slippery. Very, very slippery. You have to be very cut-foot. Otherwise you can make a big mistake.
I mean, it's going all right. It's a bit slippery today. There's some mud in the forest, so we're battling a bit to get the car to steer in. And unfortunately, I followed one of the sand marks of the wrong route, so it was one mistake and Hannes got past.
Quinn Evans and Ivar Tollefsen had dropped a few places, but were looking to use the forest to regain lost ground.
It's going well. The track's quite rough now, but we had a couple of mistakes in that first section, a couple of overshoots. It's very slippy, so we're just trying to claw back some time on the cars in front now.
It did not take long for the forest section to see a change in the pecking order on the road, with the Century Racing bat of Colin Matthews and Alan Smith the first major casualty at the front end of the field. The demise of the Century Racing bat left former champions Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman leading the special vehicles in the Motorrad Revo 1 4x4, with the pair third on the road behind the De Bruin Toyota and the Grobler Moore Nissan Navara.
The factory Castrol Toyota of Hein Lateghan and Chris Birkin was just over a minute behind the De Bruins, and they were being chased down by a fired-up Duncan Force and Rolf Pitchford, who were on a mission. They had made up around 5 minutes on the leaders and were scything through the field with the Nissan's engine note sounding glorious.
KwaZulu-Natal crew Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell were 6 minutes adrift of the lead special vehicle, but were in good shape in the Gibson Racing bat and looked to be on course for a good finish. The solid Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson had taken the Regent Racing bat ahead of the Rapsa car of Nardis Alberts and Jeff Minnett. Alberts and Minnett were also looking comfortable with a good finish in the offing, but behind them, former champion Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau were also on the move in the Total Porter and closing in on the Rapsa and Regent Racing entries.
Ivar Tollefsen and Quinn Evans were starting to shift up a gear, and behind them Jan and Hendrik Kraai, who were sharing driving and co-driving duties, had taken control of Class P in the Keymax bat and were in among the Class A cars. After losing time on the prologue, Nick and Ryan Harper had made steady progress through the field in the Atlas Copco bat and were looking strong. John Moore and Leander Pinar had lost a couple of places in the Group Bar Chev, but were running steadily without attempting any heroics.
The two SP class rookies, Thomas Rundle in the Factory Ford Racing Ranger and Gary Bertholdt in the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux, were both putting in impressive performances. The Ford was looking a little worse for wear, but that was par for the course on a demanding route. Class P champions Johan and Etienne Besaidnout had dropped behind class leaders Jan and Hendrik Kraai, but were looking solid with the equally solid Chris Visser and Japie Badenhorst in the RFS Toyota Hilux, turning in another trademark performance. Johan van Staden and James Rousseau were still in the thick of things of the Class P fight and were also putting together an impressive drive.
Still struggling with an engine misfire, Naeem Musaji and Mohammed Mulston were struggling a bit in the tyre rack Jimco and had dropped off the pace. Also struggling a little were reigning SA champions Cully and Quinton Sulwald, who'd picked up a couple of punctures and twice went off the road. They were being chased by George and Sharon Barkhazen, with the AIM Toyota Hilux showing definite signs of wear and tear.
Former quad racer Jimmy Zahos, partnered by Stefan Kutsia, wasn't happy with the suspension setup in the Mountain Dew Porter, and a flat early on in the race also set them back. They were pushing hard to make up time and were pulling away from Dion Fenter and Ian Palmer, who'd taken charge of Class E in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux.
Graham Leith and Mike Lawrenson in the Transcorp Ford Ranger were sandwiched between Class E leaders Fenta Palmer and the Rurcon Racing Ford of Lou de Bruin and Rian Greyling. The Rurcon car had developed a clutch problem and de Bruin and Greyling had dropped a little off the pace. Behind them, Herman and Wichard Sulwald stopped for what they thought was a puncture, only to find nothing wrong with the car. While last season's Rookies of the Year, Dewald van Breda and Johan de Toy, had recovered well after their earlier problems with the Toyota Hilux D4D sounding healthy.
In only their second race, Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus were having a good run in the second 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux, and it was all very amusing for some of the locals.
Kutsia Labuschagne and Johan Gerber were soldiering on in the Race Onyx Nissan and were running second in Class D behind the Van Breda de Toy Toyota Hilux. In hot pursuit of the Nissan were Henny Stroomfer and Jan Hendrik van der Linde in the Micron XL Toyota Hilux.
After a previous false alarm, Herman Sulwald and son Wichard finally had to stop to change a flat tyre. Bapi Rubeluza went past while they were busy with the Sulwalds needing to juggle tyres after running out of spare wheels.
Nee, ons gaan 'n papwiel voorop sit en ons die twee agter sit. Maar ry ons met voor. Net tot hier.
Up ahead at the end of the forest section, an ill Christian Deploy and Henk Janssen van Vieren called it a day in the RFS Toyota Hilux, along with Neil Woolridge and Kenny Scholthammer in the new Ford Ranger.
It looks like a solenoid on the electrics has gone. Just a solenoid. Nothing, it was going well, going fantastic. Yeah, just unfortunately an electrical problem. And that's it, a little bit of windscreen damage from the frames. Otherwise the car was fantastic today.
Back at the service park at Mentor's Kroll, technical crew was swinging into action as the first cars arrived after completing the first loop.
Yes, I must say we did well up to now. It was very tight and it's not easy. And if you look at the time we took to finish this first section, I think it's going to be tough out there for the next section as well.
And in the forest, very slippery up there?
It was very slippery, I think, for the first few guys. I think the second lap will be a lot better. Few guys went off the road, but we managed to stay on the road. We didn't take chances, and we're leading at the moment, and we're very glad.
As is always the case, there were one or two sob stories at the service park, but one driver satisfied with his day so far was Thomas Rundle.
It's been a good morning. We had a flat early on, about 12 k's in, but yeah, after that it's been good. We've caught some guys, so it's been going well.
You settling into the vehicle?
Yeah, it's getting a lot better, much better than yesterday, I must be honest. So yeah, it's exciting.
The Rapsa crew are staunch Blue Bulls rugby supporters, and for the moment they had other matters on their minds. But driver Nardus Alberts was having fun.
So far so good. We had we started 7th, I think, and we're some 4th now. I had quite one of those awes that most of us has had. So Michael came past me, but now we start racing.
Any exciting moments out there?
Every minute is an exciting one. No, there's a lot of spots where you can go either way. But it's fun.
Over at the Atlas Copco pit, top of the agenda was to fix the brakes on the Toyota.
We started off very well, you know, the cars were holding each other up because we started here like seconds apart. That was bad for the first 40, 50 k's till we got to the forest. And luckily me coming from a rally background, most of those forest stages we've been doing for years and years in the rally. And then we were fast. We caught like 4 or 5 cars at a time. The cars were holding each other up because, you know, the guys are not used to these mountain stages. And then at about 80 k's into the stage, we lost all brakes. We've been doing the last 100 k's without any brakes in the car.
One of the tightest battles was in Class P, where there was little to choose between the 3 leading crews.
It's hot outside, tight in the bush. We lost one of the sissy bars on the side, tight corners. I must say, the most technical we've done in a long time. And competition is stiff. We're seconds apart from one another. It started like that, it ended like that. I think the second loop's going to be even worse because we have to take out all stops to make a difference. And that's going well.
At the end of Loop 1, just 3 seconds separated the first 2 production vehicles, and from 25th, Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford had worked their way back to 4th. A fine performance had also taken Dion Fenter and Ian Palmer into the top 10 in a Class E vehicle.
The 4x4 Mega World team were looking for their second Class E win in a row and looked to be in good shape.
Yeah, very good. We just got held up for the first 24 Ks behind the Ford E-Class 40. Wouldn't give us a gap past, but we bit of motivation. We got past him, and so far we had a very clean run.
No trouble out there?
No trouble out there. Brakes faded a bit, but don't think it's anything serious.
The mood in the Northam Toyota camp, where they like to bring a little humour into their racing, was also upbeat.
Dewald, how's your morning been?
No, very well, very well. It's been hot and jumpy, but very nice. No.
And how was the forest section?
Forest section is like a rally, so you can pace up. That's very nice, and you cover kilos very quickly. But the first section is very nice to be in the beginning, and the rough section, the forest section secondly. So you relax a bit. It's not that rough on yourself.
At the front of the special vehicle field, Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman had a whopping 6-minute lead over Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell. The Cries were leading what was a tight Class P battle, and John Moore and Leander Pienaar were also holding down a top 10 spot.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA. Going off the beaten from ABSA. Overcoming